It's been so long since I've cried about this.
Just be yourself. That's all it is. Don't worry too much about the questions being asked. Just focus on the questions that I'm asking you and the experience that, or when you're talking about your experience, focus on the feelings that you felt when you experienced those things.
Okay. I might change my answers a little bit.
That's fine.
Are you going to ask the same questions again?
I can ask different questions if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so first, okay, let me just ask. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Just take a deep breath. One more. Ready?
Yeah.
Can you tell us who you are, your name, and why you're here?
Okay. My name's Islah Kathalay, and I'm here to share my experiences as a Christian and in general my life, my testimony, and all the different things that I've gone through and how they've impacted me today.
Okay, perfect. So let's get a little bit of a background about your transition from being Isla Williams to who you are today, spiritually, physically, mentally. So tell us who you were in your own words before you became a Christian.
So, who I was before, I would say that I was a very insecure person. I was very lost in what I was doing, my emotions, who I was. I didn't feel like I had much direction in my life in terms of where I saw myself going. I can say that I still sometimes have those feelings where I feel that way, but they're not as frequent as they were before. And I think before I became a Christian, I also didn't really know much about myself, or I thought I did, and a lot came to the surface afterwards.
How did you view life during those times?
I think I just viewed it very surface level. I didn't think much deeper about my life. I just saw it as a day-to-day thing that I would go through. There wasn't much thought to it otherwise. Just regularly, this is what I have to do. I have to finish school, find who I want to marry, get married, have kids, die, and that was that was it.
Very much the basics.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't mind me asking, when did you first get an understanding of God or His existence in your life?
I think in the beginning it happened for me when I was young. I did get to go to church a little bit when I was younger. My dad is of the Baptist faith, and so when we were younger, we did go to church a little bit, not consistently, but sometimes. So that was kind of my experience, knowing that God is real, is out there. But it didn't go much deeper than that. I would say when the real feeling more so came through, or when I started looking into it more on my own, was around when I was in grade 7 or 8, because this is around the time when my grandfather on my dad's side had cancer. And I remember this is when I started to look into the Bible a little bit more. And once he passed, there was a scripture that they included on the, I guess, pamphlet that they give out at funerals. I remember I would write it down when I would miss him, or I would just think about, okay, well, now that this is the first big loss that I've had in my family, where does he go from here, and what is that experience like, if there is an experience past this point here on earth? And so that's where I started to be a little bit more curious about it and read the Bible. I found comfort in it, but it didn't really last long because I went into high school, and then I just started following the rest of the influences that were out there.
So, speaking of death, what sort of impact has it had in your life that has resulted in you looking to the skies and wondering and seeing, is this how we go, or is there more to life than just eating, breathing, working, and passing on? What has the significance been behind that besides your grandfather on your dad's side? If you're talking about it.
It's kind of a weird coincidence that my first sort of introduction into the Bible and trying to become more spiritual and questioning these things was with my grandfather on my dad's side. But then when my grandfather on my mom's side passed away, that was the second time where that became something that I was really like, okay, I really need to know at this point. So it was like two very strong men within the family passing on, where those were significant points in my life where that desire to learn and to know and finding that comfort was there, because my emotions were what they were and how upset I was at that time. Because when that second grandfather passed away, when I was in my last year of university, that was the same year that I got baptized. And there was comfort in knowing, because for me, I thought, well, that's the end. And I think it was through speaking with the missionaries and learning more about what comes after, that this isn't going to be the last time that I saw him, that there will be another chance at that. And so that was something that, it's interesting that it was two deaths of both grandfathers that really tied all that in for me, because you think, okay, well, or initially I'm thinking, well, life is just, like I said, that cycle of you eat, you work, you live, you die, and that's it. But having those experiences, the first one being the little spark for me to think about it a bit more, going all that time without it, to then having another death in the family and finding comfort in that, knowing that maybe this actually isn't the end.
What was the impact that your grandfather on your mother's side had that made you seek God? What was the difference? Because it seems like, or I guess how I should phrase it is, how important was that grandfather to you that made you finally decide that it was time?
I think the suddenness of it, because it happened without any signs that it could happen, I think that's what kind of snapped me out of the trance that I was in, recognizing that life is so fragile and there's no guarantee. And I think that's something I've always known, but I just didn't really take it as seriously until I saw it happen firsthand. And also the fact that there was just a lot that I felt that he helped me with, and now that he was gone, I didn't know where I was going to get that help from anymore. And so turning to God ultimately was going to bring me those answers maybe that I would have gotten from him to some degree, because I could still do my prayers and things like that, but I think it was that chance for me to realize that, okay, I can still get the help that I need, not regardless. Yes. It's been so long since I've cried about this. I was not expecting the conversation to go this way.
I just want to touch on the changes that you've seen, not only within yourself, but in your surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
How has that allowed you to navigate better in relationships, friendships, family unions, things that matter to you, especially considering that because of your change in your decision to seek God, it stemmed from people that were very important in your life that you looked up to. How now, knowing that you can be that example to others, does that help you with those relationships?
I think every relationship is different. I would say that initially I wasn't sure how those relationships would go, because at first I felt kind of, I don't want to say embarrassed, but because it wasn't something that was talked about or encouraged. Not to say they were not encouraging it, but it's not something that was talked about often, or I guess it's not something that was talked about often enough, that I kind of felt weird, like sharing my decision to go that route. And so I didn't want to share initially, because I just felt like I was an outsider to the situation. But I would say that in doing so, I've seen the impacts all this time later, because I got baptized 2 years ago. And has it been 2 years?
I believe
3 years ago. Now I'm seeing the difference in my brothers. My brothers have decided to start their own journey, and I always thought that I wouldn't have that type of influence. And of course it's their own decision, but now being able to come together as siblings and knowing that one sibling has already went that route, and now is something that we can all talk about and relate on and help each other in our journeys. I feel like that's been the biggest impact that I've seen with family, and it's good to see that. And I was really excited when I saw that, especially for my younger brother, that he had that interest and would come and have things to talk about or to say. So yeah, I feel like
seeing the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, even though I didn't really put in, like they say, you plant the seed, but I didn't think I planted a seed. I thought that no one was really paying attention, and I wouldn't say that I was actively saying, oh, you should read the Bible more, or you should, make sure you pray. I wasn't really forcing that or saying those things. I just got baptized and then continued and started doing my own thing, and they would see the difference in my routines and what I would do, and maybe that's what was the seed overall that was planted.
To close off, I just want to give you the opportunity to share your testimony, honestly, and to just explain where your heart is and where you stand. I guess I could say with God, or where you see you stand with God. Obviously, it's a long journey for everybody, but for you, your perspective, and where you see yourself, to share that. And you don't have to close off or anything, just share what you believe, and then we'll end it off there.
Okay. Whenever I get asked to share my testimony, I feel like my mind just goes blank for some reason. But I think it's the nerves. Like, I know that there's, like, I find it hard sometimes to articulate my experiences and the role that God has had in my life. And it's not because it doesn't exist, but I just, sometimes it's hard for me to even fathom how someone so powerful could care so much about me. And I see it in the times where I've been really struggling, and how that voice has always come through every single time. It doesn't, even if it's not immediately, it's a feeling that's almost indescribable, because it's more than what we can comprehend, or at least I feel I can comprehend how that even happens, or how he's even listening to me and everyone else who believes and is able to answer my prayers, or just provide comfort in times where I feel like there is no comfort, or I will be alone. It's such a crazy feeling, but it's a good one. And sometimes I feel bad that when I get distracted by other things or my worries, and I'm not giving it all to him. I have a reminder on my phone every day that says leave it to God, because I have to remind myself that sometimes. It's a repeat every single day. It comes at 7 p.m. near the end of the day, and I'm still learning to leave it all to God, but I've seen the ways that he's blessed me, and he's blessed just so much in my life, even in the moments that I have where I am struggling. But it's something that I can't imagine not having in my life anymore, or going back to my old ways just because it may seem easier. I would rather do everything else and struggle and not, be partaking of things that maybe I would have before. But I know that ultimately at the end, there's so much greater that comes from me following the gospel and following God and praying and all those things that I do. I just hope that in the process I'm making him proud, because sometimes I just, when I'm worrying about things or, just going and doing, stressing, basically.